Bryce, offensive lineman from Eastern.
What's up? How are you?
Used to be the biggest fan we had until he played college ball.
Hey, I'm still the biggest fan. Don't get that twisted. Still waiting for that Coach Steve Show merch.
Me too. I'm still waiting for that. Well, Bryce Burnett, offensive lineman at Eastern Illinois, my alma mater. That's why I'm repping the gear today. Let's talk. I think that you'll bring some knowledge for recruiting because I think a lot of high school kids don't understand what the recruiting process is like. Now, I know your old coach, Coach West, who's probably watching or is going to hop on eventually. I remember him texting me talking about recruiting and schools and stuff for you when I was living up here. What was that process like, and what can you tell high school kids when you're recruiting and how that went?
So, yeah, Nathan was my stepping stone. I mean, he pretty much put me on the bridge to everything that I ever wanted to do with college recruiting. Coming from a small town, didn't really know much. First kid that had ever done that at that school. And, I mean, it was like, we'd had a couple guys go and play ball elsewhere, but it wasn't necessarily at the Division I level. No one had ever been recruited in the 2015 to the new era of college football, essentially with, Twitter and Huddle and all this other stuff. But we set out a plan, in the spring to go to these camps all over the Midwest. I went down to Lindenwood, went up to Northern Illinois on an invite to a camp, and just kind of traveled all over. My mom and dad every weekend, hopped in a car, driving, 3-4 hours away just to show that I could play ball. And then it was like, we had no idea what was gonna happen. And I'm getting Twitter followers every couple of days, and these camps I'm running a 40, doing the shuttle, doing one-on-ones, just kind of not knowing what to do, where to go. And I mean, I come from a school where my senior year we threw the ball like 15 times, so I had never taken a true pass set before I'd stepped on and took one-on-one reps against kids that had been doing this for 3-4 years. And so I'm sitting there, and my first offer when I was at Lindenwood's camp, I run my 40, come back, and I'm like, oh man, that felt slow. That was not good. And a coach walks up to me and he's like, hey, what's your name and number? And I tell him Bryce Burnett, and they're talking to me, and they're like, you want to play offensive line or defensive line? It looks like you play both at your high school. I'm like, well, yeah, but I also play kickoff and kick return and all this other stuff. So, I mean, so I told him, I want to play offensive line. I was never really all that great at the defense. I was offense true and true, something about protecting a guy behind me and getting to work with 4 other dudes that are, wanting the same goal. And so he's like, yeah, you just, you stuck out to us with your size and athleticism. And I'm like, oh, I've never been told that I was athletic. And I ended up running a 4.98 that day, and these coaches just swarmed me. And so, I have a great camp, shut down a couple kids in the past, didn't really do that well, but in the run, just mauling people off the ball. And Eastern Illinois comes up to me, and, they are talking to me and talking to my mom and dad, and my mom and dad are just kind of like, who are these people? Like, what are they talking to you about? Because we had coaches, at the lower levels come up and, say what's up, tell them, hey, we're here if you want to talk. But Eastern ended up offering me that day, and ended up coming on an unofficial visit a couple weeks later, and love the campus, close to home, about an hour and 30 minutes south. I mean, couldn't really beat it. Had that small town, but yet it was big enough to where you're not going to know everybody. Loved everything about it. Loved the coaching. Coach Cush, which he's now at Texas A&M, just getting to talk to him and realize that, this is where I could be at for the next 4 years, and realizing that these coaches are the same people that I looked up to as, gods for my early, years, when I was young watching college football. And so then I end up going up to Northern on a camp invite, do great there, have a great day. Their O-line coach, he goes, yeah, we want to offer you. And I'm sitting there like, wow, this is all really coming together. I'm calling Nathan every single day, telling him, hey, I just got this. And I'm going to his classroom. Hey, this is who just followed me on Twitter. This is who DM'd me. And just going, through that whole summer was like a surreal feeling. But the thing that made the most sense for me and the thing that stuck out to me was the way that, Eastern came up to me first, offered me first, showed that they were interested, showed that they cared. They, their offensive line coach at the time hit me up every single day. Their OC hit me up every single day, just talking to me. And so I ended up committing right before the start of senior year. Because the one thing I would say for, if you're not a big 4 or 5 star that's got Bama, Michigan, Ohio State, all these schools that, if you had, or even if you're not necessarily at one of those big schools recruiting you, if you're on the brink of maybe being that, I would say that, committing before your senior year is probably not what you should do. But if you're on the 3-star, 2-star level where, you've got smaller schools that are mid-majors that are looking at you, committing early took the weight of the world off my shoulders. I didn't have to worry about, oh, I might get this, or, oh, I'm not going to get this, because I had found where home was. It was a
Right.
great place, great culture, great family. The guys that I was around for the short couple of times that I was down there, they showed so much love, showed that they cared, and they were honest. And so then in December of that year, Coach Cushing gets signed and goes to Duke to be their O-line coach. And, the whole staff is pretty much gone after that. And so I'm sitting there still committed, never even thought about backing out of that, because I was, they took a chance on me, and whoever they were going to bring in, if they weren't going to keep that with me, then yeah, obviously I'd open up. But then Coach Woke came in, and you want to talk about an amazing dude through and through. He is the same person that steps in the office on a Monday as he is the same person on a Sunday night, probably sitting down with his family watching Sunday Night Football. He is a phenomenal dude. And, the first thing he did was, when he got the job, called me, told me, yep, this is what we're going to do. If you want to be here, we'd love to have you here. And from that day on, I was like, oh yeah, 100%. I was like, this is exactly where I want to be. This is exactly where I want to play. And that ultimately, recruiting, in my opinion, it's not exactly, the best school, with like rankings, all this other stuff, but it's really where you best fit, who really treats you the best, and who really cares about you. Because at the end of the day, players can be players, but if there's no relationship between that school and you, then you're just kind of sitting there and it's not really going the right way. And so, I've loved every single minute at Eastern Illinois, and I'm looking back, going on, this will be the 4th year. Looking back, that's the best decision I ever made going there.
Yeah. People don't know we're both Vermilion County boys. I'm way older than you, but we're both VC boys through and through. I know everything about Westville. Yeah, I know everything about Westville. Kicked our ass, and because good God, 2005, 2006, 2007, the state title runs. But thinking about back to those guys, no offense to them, because I know who they are. They only played like Division III ball, so you're thinking, I didn't know you were the only one to go like play big time football, because I'm thinking back to Eli Williams and all those dudes, and I'm like, they went to Illinois Wesleyan, they went to here, they only played Division III, they went to 2 straight state title games, and Pratt, like for God's sakes, was the nation's leading rusher, in the whole United States, coming from little Westville, but never went to go play big time ball.
Yeah, Caleb and Eli both should have definitely been at that level. It's hard to believe that if you look at the top 5 leading rushers ever in the state of Illinois for high school football, and there's, James Robinson's obviously at the top, and he went to Illinois State. But, number 2 is Caleb Pratt, or he might be 3 now. But the fact that he didn't go somewhere huge, being as good as he was, and we look back at tape when I was in high school of that dude running the ball, and it just is like easy for him. And then you had Eli, who, I mean, if Caleb wasn't there and Eli got those carries, who knows where Eli's at? Because, I mean, Coach Goodlove always said, when they played in the state quarterfinal, the head coach comes up to him and said, "I knew you had Walter Payton, but I didn't know you had Gale Sayers." And I mean, that really sticks out to somebody. But I mean, those dudes, still this day, I see Eli every once in a while. His dad was one of the biggest people in my life. Rest in peace to him, because I mean, every single game, still to this day, go to the 40-yard line, talk to him, say I wish you were here. And that really, when that happened my senior year, just a little bit of too much hecticness. And I mean, he'll always be with me. I mean, that dude will forever be the only reason that I ever kept going with football. I mean, freshman year, sophomore year, not doing the right, I'm not going the right direction with my development. I'm not, playing at the highest level I could. And I mean, it took Eli Williams and Nathan West and Drew Ortega believing in me to be able to put me at the point where I'm now in a position to play college football. And I mean, that would have never happened without those three guys.
Yeah, I forgot about all that. That was a long time ago because he was coaching there when I played against him. But like, I do want to say this we held Pratt to the lowest yards in our game. We still lost 40-something to 7. We held him. It was my sophomore year, my junior year, because we all focused on him. But then there's Eli Williams making plays, and you're like, well, shit, we can't stop both. So we're going to – because he only had like 90 rushing yards against us. Like our plan was, you're not running. Then there's Eli Williams. Do. And we're like, shit. There he goes.
Yeah. That team was legit. I mean, even watching tape back on them, it's just like, feel like every year of, the high school sports, you look back on teams, you're like, man, I would not want to play those guys. I mean, even with the teams that I got to see when I was growing up in junior high and grade school, and then once I got to my senior year of high school, and I'm like, man, it's a good thing we don't play those guys, because they would get after us.
Oh, you're telling me, shit. Seth Moody, good Lord in heaven almighty. I remember my sophomore year, let's Steve, go play defense. All right, do. He picks me up and throws me like 5 yards. And I'm like, oh shit. Oh God. Here we go. Because this dude came to our weightlifting thing and was benching like 420. And I'm like, oh, okay. And like, he was like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was massive.
Yeah. I never even got close to Seth's record. That bench record will forever be there. I mean, he's a freak of nature. And I mean, 2-time runner up in state for wrestling. Insane.
Yep. I did check it. Caleb Pratt is number 3 all time, 8,477 rushing yards. That's.
I'm pretty sure his freshman year he didn't play half those games. I think he was still playing freshman and JV halfway through those games.
Yeah, 2004 to 2007 is what it says.
Yeah.
So in 3 years.
Yeah.
I think 2 are private school kids above him, so those don't count. I don't count that at all.
Yeah, public is always going to be the best. Nobody can change that opinion for me.
Oh, don't get me started. Living up here in the suburbs, you got like me and Nathan text about it sometimes. And I'm like, dude, you don't even know, you don't understand what I'm going through up here with these damn private schools. But I'm buddies with some of them, so I have to be careful.
Yeah.
But curious, I was going to ask this. I have a lot of questions that's for high school kids that you can tell. I know Westville. I know what offense, Coach Goodlove runs, and I'm going to be careful how I say this. It's old school offense, and there's nothing wrong with it. Obviously, Westville is successful in it. It's going to work. But you talked about there's some things when you went to these camps, you're like, oh, I've never done this footwork. I've never done this before. When you realize that, and you realized you had a chance to maybe play college ball, did you have a conversation with Goodlove about it, or did you just have to work on that stuff on your own, or like go away from it and say, I'm still going to do what you're doing, but I think I have to work on this stuff too?
Yeah. So For anybody out there who doesn't know what we run, I mean, we are hand in the dirt, everybody on the offensive line, counter power, dive. I mean, it's, my senior year, we put in an offense called Trojan, which there was like 2 tight ends, and then we had 3 running backs in the backfield. I mean, it was straight downhill runs. We're not throwing the ball. We're just going to get after you up front and just basically outwork you. And I mean, that worked from time to time. And then, we go through the conference and everything, and Nathan West, man, come out on a Friday night. It's pouring down rain. We're like, oh, we got these guys in the bag. This is a straight running night. We're going to be all right, and we're going to win this conference for the first time, take this away from Bismarck. And, I mean, just didn't do it. Got beat, 14-12. They threw the ball still to that night, and Nathan had a great game plan. Him and Mark knew exactly what was going to happen, what we were going to do. And, I mean, it was not our best showing. And then, I mean, we go and get to the first round of the playoffs against Maroa. And I mean, they're a 2A powerhouse, always, I mean, have been since the early 2000s. And, we go up 7-0 on them, and then we're getting ready to go up 14-0, get the ball at half. There's 2 minutes to go. And, well, Westville is forever linked in the IHSA playoffs forever. Longest pick 6 in IHSA history, 104 yards. Couldn't tackle the kid, and he goes to the house. We end up getting beat. And so just to go back on the question, I mean, to start the year, I've been to all these camps, and, I've learned so much. I mean, in that short, like June and July, heading into August, I learned, in my stance, I shouldn't be all my weight down on my hand, or I should offset my feet, just because when you take a first step, you don't necessarily want both of your feet to be in the same spot. And so I've learned all this stuff all year long, and I kind of try to come back and, teach what I've been taught. And it was, we would listen to it a little bit, and it was good, and we took some good things from it. Now they've started to do that where, hey, we're going to offset all of our offensive line feet. And that's huge because, I mean, as much as like it's, downhill, go forward, go straight ahead. I mean, there's still, if you're running inside zone, outside zone, power, counter, lead, anything like that, you've got to have the correct footwork, or else you're going to have kids tripping up, not getting to the right backers, getting into places that you're not going to be successful in. And so having those conversations, it was difficult to start with. I mean, I had learned how to skip pole all summer long, and it was the craziest thing in the world to me that we're skip pulling. And I'm like, what is this? I'm used to opening up and running down the line. And I remember my freshman and sophomore year I played tackle my freshman year, and then I played center in my sophomore year for a little bit, and then I got moved to guard. And then my junior year, I'm pulling and we're doing power and counter, and I'm missing these backers. I'm missing these DNs. And I'm like, man, this is, frustrating. We only got to play 6 games in that year. And I'm like, man, this is getting really frustrating. And then I learned what skip pulling was and how to do it, not as good as what I know now, but it just opened up a whole new window. And now I'm getting inside of backers, and I'm going and busting out the end and taking them out and washing them down. And we're having big runs off of this stuff. And, I had taught the other guy that played left guard, Riley, he was a heck of an athlete, played linebacker for us and played offensive line. Mm-hmm. You don't see that very many places. And we had started this like whole movement where we've now got these concepts, and it's getting taught to these younger kids. And, they're asking me and asking, how can I be better? How can I do this better? What can I change to be more of the pro style offense, and not just, what we know as, running straight ahead, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And so, I mean, it showed in my senior year film. I mean, when we did throw the ball, I mean, it was nobody near the quarterback. Nobody was even around. I mean, they could rush. It didn't matter if they text, if they, nut stunted. It didn't matter. Exits. I mean, I was picking everything up just because I understood the relationship with my feet and how to get there and how to cut a defender off and how to jam back inside and how to do all this. And it just, you saw the level of play from my junior year film to my senior year film of how big those camps were to really understand how that, development needed to happen in order to be successful, even at our level. because I think I went from being a good player my junior year to being one of, if not the best player in our conference that year,
Hmm.
just by, buying in every single day. And if we weren't necessarily doing it at our practices, it was, okay, I'm doing it afterwards, and really remembering, like, yes, this is what my job is right now, but I've got a future job that I've got to be prepared for, and understand that nowadays, you can't really, if you're wanting to play and play successfully and play right away at a school, you got to really adapt to what they're doing. And when I'm watching these games on TV and going to, game day visits, it's, hey, they're taking pass set after pass set after pass set, and they're running the ball, and it's inside zone, outside zone. You better have your feet right. You better not miss a backer. I mean, the way we teach double team blocks then versus what they teach now, because I've gotten, thankfully, they do like to listen a little bit, even if I am a young gun. But when my brother, his senior year, which would have been last year, um, he played center for him, and him and the right guard and left guard are just blowing holes open on dive, because they're, you know, he's the lead man, he's the drive man. We're seeing displacement between these two. We're getting off the backers now. They're having big time success, and if they don't run into Rock Ridge, who ended up just mowing through the playoffs until the very end, I mean, they were a good enough team to go pretty far. And I
Right.
mean, I just think that the development that has to happen, for some of these smaller schools like Westville and Oakwood, and I mean, you're seeing it more over at Bismarck, and you're seeing it more over in Oakwood with Cam Lee. I mean, that dude, you want to talk about knowing ball? Cameron Lee knows more than just about anybody I've ever met, and that dude knows it and can teach it and can reiterate it in a way that I've never seen. And I mean, I just hope that that is what the Vermilion County takes the next step and really understands that, this is high school football, but there is a stage after high school football that people have achieved and can get to. And, the more that they learn that, the better off that these schools are going to be. I mean, nowadays, if you want to win in the IHSA playoffs at, 1A, 2A, unless you are a private school who has a running back committed to Oregon, you have to be able to throw the ball, and you have to be able to, have the RPO game, and, run bubbles, run these little slant routes, even run the rub plays that aren't legal, but you're not going to get a referee that realistically knows at that level what a rub route is, what a pick route is, unless it's just blatantly obvious. But um, the more and more these smaller schools develop, the better off they're going to be. And the more that they teach and listen about these college programs, the clinics and everything, where they're learning, yep, this is, have 1 foot here and 1 foot here, and this one goes here and this one goes here. And it's still the same steps, but you're moving in a way that you're not going to have guys trip over their own feet, move in a way that they're not going to get off the linebackers, and you're just going to see more success. And I mean, that was the biggest thing with me is, even if you're at a place where they necessarily want you to do it their way, you can always find time to do your own thing. And you can find time after practice, or, before practice, or, on like a weekend, or even just in your house. I mean, just taking simple things like that. Like, it's not hard to take a zone step inside of a house. It's not hard to go outside and, put some shoes on and take a pass set. I mean, and that's what I've learned at college is, like, time is not your friend as a student athlete. You are pretty much busy 99% of the time, but it's making efficiency with that time and being, quality over quantity. If you've got 15 minutes to be able to go do some pass sets, you better take live pass sets really good, or else you're not going to get any better. And so that's what I hope college coaches, keep preaching to these high school coaches that are not necessarily stuck in the mud of, the old ways of football, where, I mean, running the ball 52 times a game, but starting to implement that later on into their programs, and as they get new kids in there and kind of flush things out, being able to do those things so that kids have the stepping stones to be successful in college.
Well, I learned that a long time ago that I should probably start coaching things that college coaches do to an extent, just in case kids get looked at to play at Division 3, 2, 1, whatever it is. and my college knowledge and what I know, I try to do. But I know how Vermilion County works. If Nathan listens to this, I take credit because I told him to do some of these things. Me and Nathan text all the time when it's football season, like, "Hey, what about this? Hey, what about this?" And he's asking me questions, and I'm like, "Yeah, you should do this. You should do this. Yeah, try this." Because I've coached at like 8 high schools, so I've learned a lot of things. And so I try, like right now, I have a 6'6", 300-pound tackle. I have to coach him a little different than my 5'10", 210-pound lineman. You have to teach him footwork here, footwork here. And it's funny you brought up the skip pull. When I was in high school, we never pulled unless it was counter. Like at Oakwood, we ran option. Then when I'm learning how to skip pull, I was like, when I got walked on at Eastern, I'm like, oh, what the hell is this? Like, because back then camps were a little different. You just went there, it was one-on-ones, there was no anything else. And now what I do is, and I don't know if they do it at Eastern, if a kid can't skip pull, I'll figure out a way to get him more successful. Like, hey, maybe he can't skip pull this way. Maybe he has to slow pull, just step around, shuffle, shuffle, go like North Dakota State does. Hey, but
Mm-hmm.
this kid can skip pull, so you're going to skip pull. Hey, and I had to teach him, like, my kids want to open up and pull on power. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. Why? And I was like,
Yep.
think about it from a kinesiology standpoint. And they're like, what's kinesiology? I'm like, oh God, okay, here we go. I'm like, if you open pull and you're aiming for a linebacker, the fact that you're opening, running, your head's turned, then you got to stop your body, turn, and then go up the field. That linebacker is going to beat you 9 times out of 10. If you skip pull and you're square to the line and you can see where you're going, now on counter, you want to go because you're going to kick out. And then once they
Mm-hmm.
start seeing that, they're like, oh shit. You got to realize some of my kids aren't the brightest and they know it, but I got to teach them that way. Or, especially when I came in and I'm teaching zone and wide zone and this and that, like the footwork's so important. Because that was my next question. When you're trying to practice, I know at Westville they do dive, power, whatever. You get to Eastern and they're running inside zone, outside or wide zone. They're running this. How big of an adjustment was it to be like, you've already worked on it yourself, but to get there and be like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't Westville, this is college.
Yeah, I mean, it was the transition was so crazy to me because I mean, obviously I had picked up stuff that I learned at camps, but I had never truly taken an inside zone step, or what I thought was an inside zone step wasn't. And so, I mean, we get there and first day on campus, come down in the summer, because I think any kid that's going into college needs to be down at a school in the summer. I mean, you develop really fast. You can pick up the playbook. You understand what's expected. You see these older guys, and you kind of develops a bigger, group together when those freshmen come in. And it just brings in a whole different level of like tandemness where you can develop with other dudes and understand that, I don't know where you're from, you don't know where I'm from, but let's work together to figure this out for a team. And so when I got down there and I'm like doing these things that I thought I was doing correctly, and then I quickly learned that, when I was skip pulling in high school, it was my shoulders were turned open and turned towards the sideline more times than what I was expecting to see, because, in our little area, the linebackers see you pull and they're just going to go try to fill C or D gap. And so that was 90% of the time what was happening. And so I quickly learned that I got to keep my shoulders square, and I don't necessarily need to be so fast down the line. I'm like stepping underneath myself and kind of going too quick. And, Coach Canova, hats off to him. I mean, I know that I was probably one of the more frustrating kids to teach because it just was all brand new to me. I mean, it was like taking a blank slate and kind of undoing things in my brain that, I had been taught since I was 5 years old. And it was learning that, I can't just out muscle kids anymore. These kids are all the guy from their high school. And it's not, I'm bigger, stronger, maybe faster than you. It's now I have to have correct technique or else I'm not going to be able to be successful at this level. And so, learning a pass set, learning how to set with another person and have that type of dance with the D line, passing stuff off, twists, and even just seeing it. It wasn't really till probably the end of my freshman year where I understood like the gap to player distribution. And it's like, okay, if that backer is sitting in this gap, then more than likely this is where they're supposed to fill. And if they're going to stunt, and they're going to bring a blitzer, understanding that this is like we have the D lineman, and if it's a short side or if it's a man side, understanding that like the terminology was one of the more difficult things for me to pick up, even though it was super simple once I learned it. But
Mhm.
the techniques that we learned right away, I mean, I see these guys just blowing through these drills like it's nothing, knowing everything, knowing every step. And I'm like redoing it 3 or 4 times until the point where I'm like, man, this is frustrating. Like I just really want to figure this out. I know I'm good enough to do it. Why am I not doing it? And then once I started to figure it all out and the game started to slow down, it's like, okay, this makes more sense now. Like this is getting to be the point where it's like, okay, these freshmen are coming in during the summer and it's now me and my other teammates that are, we've seen our seniors graduate for 2 years now, and now we're helping these freshmen that are coming in kind of quickly understand this is what's expected, this is the technique, and just kind of, seeing their frustration too, where it's, man, they know that they know what they're supposed to do, but they haven't been able to translate it to the field. And just thinking back on like when I was there 3 years ago now, just being like, man, like this stuff is so frustrating, but it's like you just got to keep the course, got to work on it every single day, pre, post, every day. I mean, if not, you won't develop that muscle memory. And once you develop it, it's hard to lose it. I mean, you see guys, I see it all the time on Twitter, older guys that have graduated that are in their 30s, 30 or 40s, they see them take a pass set still and they still remember it. And I mean, even with like hand replays, you go up to somebody who's graduated from Eastern and they've come back for an alumni thing and, you hand reset them and they know exactly where to put their hands and where to get underneath. And you can talk to them about that stuff. But yeah, I'd say the transition from me was as difficult of a thing as it probably was for anybody, just coming from such a small place where, necessarily the techniques that I had learned over the summer during those camps kind of, they at the end of the day, I used them to a point where it was like, okay, now I know that I can go back to my old stuff and still win this for us, win my one-on-one. And so that was the most difficult thing because, I mean, I remember fall camp, first scrimmage, and I lean over my toes and I get push pulled, and I'm like, oh, well, there we go. And,
Yeah.
Coach Hoover comes up to me and he goes, welcome to college football, Bryce. And I'm like, wow, that was something like I had never seen. But then it was whenever I realized, we have a scrimmage the next week and the same dude tries to do the same move. And this time I plow him into the end zone. We score a touchdown on our scrimmage. And the first guy that comes up to me, Coach Hoover, comes up and he's like, hell yeah, like that's exactly what's supposed to happen. You did it right that time. It probably felt good. And I'm like, yep. And, he was a GA at the time and he's giving me all this praise and everything else. And Coach Canova comes up and he just kind of looks at me and just shakes his head. And I'm like, yep, there it was. That felt right. And just learning, what feels good and what doesn't, as a player as it goes on, ooh, that didn't necessarily feel right. And then you watch it on film, it's like, oh, that's why it didn't feel right. It was messed up. And so like the film watching and the technique, just that step from high school to college was the biggest change for me.
Yeah, because back in my day, it was VHS DVDs. We didn't have Huddle. We didn't have so watching film was way different. And so I think you've had a better experience watching film than I did. I had to kind of learn and do it myself and talk to people. But I think that's another big thing going from a small 2A, 3A, how you watch film because you got to play both ways. So now you're doing this, you're doing this. And that's another thing I've had to learn is when I watch film with high school, like you guys get a lot of film time in high school, we might get 10 minutes. So you got to
Right.
figure out, I have to pick like 5 plays, go over it. And like, do you understand your footwork here? Why is your foot doing this? Look at your stance. It's terrible. And, God, you would love my film room because I'm the nicest jackass ever. I'm like, I'll replay a clip over and over and they're just looking at me and I'm like, why the fuck would you do this? And just doing this. And I'd be like, when there's a buffet and you want to run because you're so hungry, why don't you run at the linebacker like that? Like stupid stuff and just going over and over. I'm tired. I need to be the line coach at Eastern because that would be. I'm going to text Wilkerson that now too. Like, hey,
Yeah, I mean, Coach Canova going to New Mexico State, shout out to him. That's awesome for him. I mean, he's one step closer to, being at one of those big Power 5 schools or, whatever his goal is now. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he does there, and wish him the best.
Um, what was I going to say to you? Okay, so you said a couple things, and I want athletes to hear this. You talked about wanting to stop playing football after like your sophomore year because things weren't going the right way. You talked about how coaches influenced you to stay, and you did it. Switched your mindset up a little bit. You're talking about working on things on your own. I know what I see, but I want to know if you see it. How many high school kids do that? How many high school kids are willing to do that?
I mean, the thing is you've got to have a really motivated kid that really wants to be the best at whatever they're wanting to do. It was fighting. I mean, even my little brother, who's the same height, a little bit bigger than me, probably stronger than me, just big dude. Getting him to do the things that I was doing was like tooth and nail. I mean, it was just crazy that the the goals that I had that I wanted to get done were like astronomical to him. So it was like, oh, I was at practice for 3 hours. I'm not going to do 15 more minutes of extra stuff. I already worked on this during practice. But it's outside of practice where you get better at what you're trying to do. And you really see, things that you do better on the field during practice or during games is really what you do outside of practice that prepare you for those moments. And so, I mean, high school kids, it's hard. I mean, I understand that there's a million other things out there to do. And there's times where I was like, you know what? I don't feel good today. My body's a little banged up. I'm just getting kind of tired of this. I don't really feel like working today. And it was the next practice realizing that, ooh, I should have done 20 to 15 more minutes of extra stuff. And I might have been a little bit better today. Today was not a good practice. I have to be better about this. And so, I mean, if a high school kid really wants to be the best at that level or get recruited to a higher level, I mean, you got to work at it every single day, day in and day out. And if it's just for 15 minutes, you're still getting better than anybody who isn't doing that extra stuff for 15, 20 more minutes. I mean, the edge is so close, and to be able to separate yourself just a little bit is going to mean more in the long run than just being like, I'm ready to go home. I'm hungry. I don't want to do this. I mean, there were days where I was so devoted and wanting to do the absolute best myself that it was like, okay, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go to practice for 3 hours. And I mean, I don't know how your guys' practices are, but ours was, we're doing offense versus defense every single day, defense versus offense, team one versus team two, team one versus team two for an hour and a half, running 50, 60 plays on both sides every single day. And I mean, just gassed every single day. And then running at the end, just every day. I mean, to the point where I'm so tired after practice, but it's, hey, Brennan, you're going to have to get a ride home with mom. I'm going to go lift. Or it's, hey, I'm going to go, do some speed stuff afterwards. You're going to have to get a ride home. And just realizing that there's extra stuff that has to be done to be able to play at a higher level is like the biggest thing that I would tell, high school kids. And everybody always asks, oh, what's the secret formula? What's the secret formula? It's like, there is none. You just have to outwork everybody. And I mean, that's what, I told Nathan start of senior year, I'm like, nobody's going to outwork me. And he's like, I don't doubt it. And I'm like, I don't care who you put across the ball from me. And he, Bismarck, they're good. They had some real studs on that team. And I'm like, I don't care who you put across from me. It's not going to matter. It's going to be to the point where I'm going to be better than them. I'm going to be more prepared than them. I'm going to practice harder than them. And that's just going to be what happens. I mean, and they have some absolute dogs that year. And it still was the point where it's like, I'm moving people. I'm moving everybody. It didn't matter who you put over there. It didn't matter what position I was in at that point. Like, we were going to be successful if you were to put a ball carrier behind me. And, we're successful, but high school, there's so much to do. I understand, everybody wants to go and have fun, hang out with your boys. But I think the one thing that I loved about being at a small school was all my boys, besides maybe one or two, were playing with me. We're playing football. We're doing the same things. And even if it wasn't necessarily them wanting to be as successful because they knew that the road was closing for them, I mean, they knew the game was over. just seeing them be behind me and back me, and still this day, I mean, I've got 5 or 6 dudes that'll just travel to everything. I mean, my first career start down in Louisiana. My brother and 3 other dudes do the whatever 14-hour trip down there, and miss work, miss school to go and watch me start a college football game. And I mean, that just means more as a person, but I mean, as a football player, knowing that you've got those people behind you, I mean, they're really nothing really compares to that. But I mean, high school, you got to find the time, you got to do the time. And I mean, if there's a coach that believes in you and you can get tight knit close with that coach, it's over. I mean, that's how Nathan was, that's how Drew was. I mean, we got close. They wanted me to be successful. I told them, this is what I'm going to do. And they backed me 100%. Even Nathan being at a different school my entire senior year, it's, hey, I want to do some speed work. Let's meet here. Okay, sounds good. Let's do it. And just training with him still and staying in touch with him still. I mean, and nothing changed besides the fact that like he left to go somewhere else, but we still stayed the course, worked just as hard. And I mean, that's what I would tell your high school kids. Like, don't get discouraged by hard coaching, but when a coach is showing you praise, like really understand that that's coming from a place of like, okay, I want you to be successful. I want you to be better. Because I didn't understand that as like a freshman and sophomore, or even a junior in high school until I did. And once that moment, happened where it flipped and it's like, okay, this dude really is invested in me. He really wants me to be better. I'm now going to play harder for this guy because he's invested in me, because he's putting in the time with me. He wants me to be good. So I'm going to be as good, if not better, than what he wants. So, I mean, that's what I would say to your high school kids. And just don't get discouraged by, all the rah-rah. And if it's like what they preach at Eastern, it's never as good as it seems, never as bad as it seems. It's somewhere right smack dab in the middle. And, flush it, get it over with, get it out of the way. But you always have to remember it, but don't let one play impact the next. So, I mean, that's what I would say about that.
Couple things out of that. One, the 3-hour practice makes me cringe because we don't do that anymore. That's not a thing anymore. Just we're 2 hours or so, and that's it. Like, we're not going 3 hours. 2 hours is max of like 3:30 to 5:30. And that makes me cringe. I remember those days running gassers and stuff. Makes no sense.
Yeah. Old 2040s, man.
Nope.
Those are, I'm glad that, man, as soon as I ran my last one, I looked at all my buddies and I'm like, man, I mean, if it's over, at least we're done with these, because it just made absolutely no sense. I was in the best shape of my life, but I mean, as much as we ran, it was insane. I mean, and it was like, man, all I'm doing is 3 yards. It's what, 3 yards per play for an offensive play on average, and it's like 5 seconds, and I'm running, 40 yards or 20 40s every single day, and I'm like, man, this is really just kind of outrageous. But I mean, it made us tougher. It made us believe in the fact that we were going to outwork people and we were going to have more heart. But I don't necessarily know how much it meant for my football skill set.
Well, I'm sure if Nathan hears that, he's throwing up right now, because me and him are like on the same wavelength of work hard in the moment of your drills. Don't run anymore. Because Coach Denhart made us do something called 12 minutes of hell every year. And it was, you're going to jog, then when I blow the whistle, you sprint, blow the whistle, you jog, that type of stuff. Go up and down the field, and you're going to do it for 12 minutes. And his whole spiel at the end was, that was only 1 quarter, fellas. Like, you got 3 more quarters. And looking back at the time, you're like, oh, yeah, we got to be more in shape. Now I look back at it, and I'm like, I'm an offensive lineman. Why the hell am I running for 12 minutes? My happy ass is going to block for 3 seconds to 5 seconds and then get – back then it wasn't 40 seconds, it was less. But you're going to get like 25-second rest. Like, come on now. Like, Jesus Christ. That makes me cringe when you said that. I started to have flashbacks because I don't know if they had 2-a-days when you played. We sure did. And we don't have it anymore. There's no such thing as 2-a-days no more in Illinois. But I remember 2-a-days, and oh, good Lord in heaven, like what we had to do. And that's why my knee's banged up, my back's banged up. I probably had 10 concussions that I don't even know about.
Yeah, they stopped doing 2 days, but man, it's still instead of 2 2-hour practices or 2 hour and 30-minute practices, it's just one long 3.5, 4 hour practice where you're just out in the nice Illinois heat during the summer, and all you're thinking about is where are we going to go swim after this, and you're not really thinking about, oh man, I really hope we do good on this next play. It's, man, this is awful. This is hard, but it makes you tougher in the end. I mean, though, I think, and I've only ever played in Illinois, obviously, but being in that type of weather for the fall and the summer, and then once it gets cold, I'd say Illinois got one of the most unique like year-round schedules. I mean, if you play, say you play a south, like a team from the South, like Ohio State last week when they played Tennessee, you could really tell that Tennessee was affected by the cold. And I mean, that's just something that you don't really see in like the Southern schools where it's, I mean, it was like 70 degrees yesterday for the Rose Bowl. I mean,
Mhm.
that's nothing. And I mean, that's warm, but when you get these cold games, I mean, Indiana and Notre Dame last week, where it's like 12 degrees during the game, I mean, that really does, because I played in 2 snow games, and I mean, the cold is really something that affects you if you haven't been there before or played in that before. But I mean, yeah, we didn't have 2 days, but fall where we're just coming in off summer, and Coach Goodlove always said, hope you're doing something all summer long because you're going to see it. And everybody who didn't do anything, they did see what happened.
Yep, same thing. We had, because the rules back in my day were you could have 2.5 hour practices, but there has to be time in between, like 2 or 3 hours. So we go in the morning for 2.5 hours, get 2 or 3 hour break, then do it again for 2.5 hours. But our Coach Denhart, did not let us go home. We had to stay in the locker room because when he was in high school, their all-state running back went swimming after 2 days and cramped up and drowned in the river and died.
Oh, shit.
So he has PTSD from it. So he's like, I don't want you guys to get in a car wreck. I don't want you to go swimming and something happened to you. You're going to stay here where I can watch you and make sure everything's good. And that way, if he wanted to watch film for some reason, if he wanted to pull you in. But yeah, and so now there's no more 2 days. I talk to my kids now and I say something about 2 days and they go, wasn't that an TV show? And I'm like, no, I'm talking about like practice, like practicing. And they're like, oh, that sounds dumb. And I'm like, it was dumb,
Yeah.
especially on the full pads day. You hit the whole first practice forever. Then we would scrimmage in the second one. We would do nothing but hitting for 2.5 hours, just hit, 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 hit. Then we get our break. Then we go out for the next practice. He'd be like, all right, first team offense versus second team defense. We're going to go out there and run like 55 plays. Then we're going to switch. Okay. And that's all you did.
Yeah. It's awful. It really is.
You don't do that at Eastern, do you? Run like 80 plays?
No. I mean, we got our practices once we're in season. I mean, it's a 20, 25 play script split up between ones and twos. And I mean, you'll have 2 exchange periods where it's, first team versus scout team, second team versus scout team. I mean, max plays you get in a day. I think our starters get I think it's like 30-ish plays, if that. I mean, most of the time it's cut short. Unless you've got we obviously do inside run and, one-on-one and skelly, but I don't really. The most the starter gets in a day is probably 20-ish reps where it's, high intensity, high evaluation. But I mean, still, that's nothing compared to 50 reps on offense and then 50 reps on defense, and then you're running afterwards, and it's like, oh man, this is just getting to be way too much.
Right. Did Goodlove make you guys go to the weight room at the school in the summer?
Like,
What?
just like the lift,
Yeah.
and then do football stuff. Oh yeah, it was big. My probably like freshman, sophomore, junior year, and then once COVID happened, and everything got shut down for a while, and there was a little like confusion on what we were allowed to do, what we weren't allowed to do. Other guys started working out at the place close to us, where I still work out, True Grit. and kind of doing their own thing and everything else. And I think that was one of the big things my senior year was, freshman, sophomore, junior year, our team was super close, but there was a little bit of division. I mean, we had guys that didn't necessarily want to work out who didn't, and it wasn't really like required anymore or expected because, of the harshness of COVID with the rules and everything in Illinois, not being able to play in the fall, having to play in the spring, and then having like super strict restrictions. I mean, there was just guys that didn't want to do it that had done it, and it showed on the field. I mean, it was kind of the guys who worked out together were always together on the field and off the field. But the guys who didn't, their play was okay at best. I mean, I'm not knocking anybody, but the guys who got in, paid their dues, were successful. I mean, we still ran and did, seven or not even 7-on-7. It was just quarterbacks and wide receivers, and then offensive line did certain things. But it was more of me running the show than anybody else because it was what I knew versus we just knowing now, seeing now what we do in the summer. It's like if that were to be implemented at a high school program where obviously you can't make it required and it's optional, but I mean, we do so much team stuff in the summer and we get better by ourselves without the coaches. I mean, it pays it pays so much to do that time in the summer with those guys because you just get so much better, so much closer. You understand why someone's doing it. I mean, I wish we would have done that more in high school because I think we would have been better for it. And we did it for, like I said, my first 3 years. And then we kind of teetered away from it. And it honestly, it probably did make us a little worse than what we should have been because my senior year, my high school team should have been, I mean, second, third round of playoffs if we had the guys that wanted to buy in and, pay the time. But we just didn't. And I mean, I think that's huge for a high school program. If you can get, even if you get, I don't know, at our like little schools, if you can get 20 kids, that's huge. I mean, we had, I think, not even 32 kids on our high school team. If we would have had half that, if we would have had half those guys wanting to come in, live together, hang out together, do things together, makes a big difference. I mean, you have a lot more reason to play for the guy to the right of you and the guy to the left of you. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Right, because we have kids now, like, my school is 1,900, but our varsity team, we roll with only, like, 40 kids on our varsity team. But the thing that I'm seeing in my life is kids would rather go to other gyms and, like, work out, and we're trying to implement, like, "Hey, we're only asking, like, 2 or 3 days a week, if that, to come work out, go work out." Other side of that, we're trying to get them all to do things, but the big thing is, like, the summer we can get kids, it's the off season. Like, right now, kids that don't do basketball or wrestling, to get them to stay after school for a half hour, they'd rather go to a gym and work out, and we're trying to get them to be at the school and, like, be together. Because that's the good thing about small town football is when you're done working out, done practicing, you guys go hang out and you're just chilling, like, whatever it was. Our kids now, they don't hang out afterwards. Like, we can tell, like, they don't hang out. They all have now, being up in the suburbs, there's a lot more to do. That's big town, quote unquote big town. Um, and that we can see it sometimes where, like, there's this division of, because you guys don't hang out. You don't have to be best friends, but you're not hanging out, you're not doing this. You'd rather, some kids rather go party, they'd rather go do this, and there's no cohesiveness. And that's what I like about college football is you guys come from all different backgrounds, but you all have to work together and find a way to hang out. So I'm glad that you said that, because our kids are like, "Oh, it's just lifting." We're like, "It's more than just lifting together. It's being around each other."
Yeah, 100%. You get a certain level of respect for somebody if you see them put in just as much work as you do.
Right. Um, what have you seen in your life of college football with this transfer portal stuff? Because you've been at the same school for a while. I'm sure there's guys that you've been with that have left from transfer portal, been recruited from transfer portal, have conversations about it. What's it? And I know it's not division like Power Four, but what's it like from an FCS and this transfer portal era, name, image, and likeness because I want you guys to make money, but NCAA has no control over what's happening.
Yeah, I mean it's insane. Seeing it from a smaller school, seeing the big schools what they're doing. I mean the Underwood kid just signed for $10 million to go play quarterback at Michigan, and I mean I think that in my opinion, FCS football compared to even I would say just Power Four. I mean, you're just seeing kids that are playing that there used to be a place in college football where it was, okay, college football is where you have kids that love the game, that want to get paid at the next level. And so they're playing because they love the game, not because they're getting a dollar, not because they're getting a dime. And so now you're seeing these kids that, oh yeah, I like football, but I'm all worried about how I can pay for, how I can pay for a new car or a new house, or, it's insane the like NIL that's just flashing around. I mean, and as a school that, we got dudes on the team that they might make, I wouldn't even say 500. I doubt there's anybody on our team that makes over $1,000 from NIL. I highly doubt it. That when they get, they have a successful season. I mean, our starting safety last year, Blake Ruffin, he's at Louisville now. He was absolutely one of the best players in FCS football at the safety position. All-American, first team all-conference, unanimous. Great dude. And, we're talking to him about the transfer portal and everything else. He's like, yeah, I got these schools looking at me. He's like, but Louisville, which is where he's from, they're like, yeah, we'll offer you scholarship and we'll offer you money. And it's like, well, he's like, I can't beat that right up from home. I mean, scholarship, money. He's like, I'm not going to tell you guys how much it is. I mean, but now you can look and see on any recruiting website how much a person is projected to make or is making to a certain extent. But it's hard for FCS programs, in my opinion, to, unless you're like one of the Dakotas that's just been a powerhouse for a long time. It's hard for, us to get kids that want to be at this place and stick around for, 4 or 5 years, unless they really do love Eastern and love football. Because, I mean, there's better opportunities elsewhere for some people, but I just don't think that, from what I've heard from other people that have left, they're like, yeah, I mean, it's nice being here. I love, the school that I'm at. I love the money that I'm making. It's higher level football, but man, I miss Charleston. Man, I miss Eastern, that type of family feeling where, you can walk in on a Sunday and everybody says what's up to everybody. You've got a room full of people that, they're here because they love it. They're here because this is what, God told them that they should do. And they are here for a reason. And there's other dudes that they go elsewhere and they just absolutely ball out. I mean, we had my freshman year, one of our corners transferred and he went to New Mexico State, and now he's at Utah State. Led the Pac-12 or whatever it is, Mountain West. I'm not sure which one it is, in tackles this year. I mean, just had a great successful year. And then one of our other wide receivers that was in my class, who's now going to Illinois, Justin Bowick.
Oh yeah.
Goes to Ball State, has a good 4 games and, red shirts. And now he's going to the University of Illinois, and like texting him saying, what's up, hey, congratulations. Definitely will probably see you like around. I mean, Champagne's only an hour from my house. So it's like, definitely will probably see you around, keep in touch. And then we've got, I mean, my class is getting to the point where there's only a certain number of us left. And I mean, our All-American running back just went to UConn. One of our best corners just went to Michigan State. I mean, it's getting tough. I mean, it feels like FCS is kind of becoming like the whatever AAA for the big dogs up at FBS. But I mean, there's still schools in the FCS. I mean, the Dakotas. I tell everybody, I'm like, the Dakotas could play with just about anybody. I mean, they are as good of MAC teams. They're as good as Mountain West teams. They could play in any of those conferences. I mean, I know that they've been asked to. But I just think that, hats off to all these FCS coaches that are still sticking around, because, I mean, the transfer portal is wild for FBS, but I think it's even more wild for FCS because, I mean, it's not like you can throw out $20,000 at a kid because you don't have those funds. I mean,
Right.
it's big football, but it's not like, if you throw out $20,000 to a kid that was an All-American at the FCS level, they're automatically going to be like, yep, good, done, let's do it. I'll come there tomorrow. I mean, you have to find kids and win them over in different ways nowadays at the FCS level, kind of like what FBS was, or I
Mm-hmm.
should say, what it was, even if you had some, little people behind the back, McDonald's bag like Louisville did with Patino. But I
Yeah.
mean, you
Yeah.
just find kids that really love football at the FCS level, and that's, I mean, even meeting dudes from other teams, and they're like, yeah, I mean, I really just love football. Like, I had this big time offer, but or even FBS bounce backs that come to FCS, and sometimes that doesn't work out because, I mean, they want to go back to FBS, but you find kids that are just really in love with the game at the FCS level. I mean, one of our best receivers last year who came from D3, I mean, just had the heart, had the dog in him. I mean, just loved football. And I mean, he knew that it was coming to an end. He knew he wasn't going to the NFL, but he loved football enough to come back for a fifth year. He had to have hip surgery his senior year, and he comes back and just does amazing for us, helps us almost win a conference championship, be a point away. And I mean, it's like you just learn that, the grass sometimes is greener. We've had kids that have transferred out that have gone to better places, quote unquote. But it's not always greener. We've had kids have to go down that. I mean, and there's probably Division II programs that have, nicer facilities, probably an indoor, things like that. I mean, like Coach Wilk preaches hard hat and lunch pail. I mean, that's what Eastern is. That's
Mhm.
kind of how it came up. I mean, it's put the time in, punch that time clock, come out, and we're not going to have the fanciest weight room, the fanciest locker room, which, I mean, he's working on it, and new stadium, everything like that. But you're going to come out here because you love the game and you love your brothers and you play for, the name on the front and the name on the back. I mean, that's the whole thing. But I mean, the transfer portal, what I have to say about that is it's insane. I mean, there's it's going to be a lot of people hopping in, hopping out, getting new homes. And I mean, I would just say best fit, if it's not where you're at right now, you can find a better fit, and it might be good for you. It might not. It's rolling the dice, really. I mean, you just got to find somewhere that is, in love with you, you're in love with them. And it just becomes a nice, happy relationship, before you really know that it was a good decision or a bad decision. Because I've heard through a lot of people there that have said, yep, leaving Eastern was a good decision for me, my family, my playing career. I'm getting looks elsewhere. And I've also heard people that have been like, nah, I wish I would have never left. This school is good. It's better than, maybe where I was at before, but the brotherhood and the family culture that was at that program, it's just, that's what a lot of players miss. And I think that's what the FBS programs kind of lack, as much as they say, family. But I mean, with the millions of kids that are just blowing through NIL and just going to whichever college is going to throw the most coin at them, I mean, you just have to really understand that, yeah, money does talk and it makes a lot of problems a little bit better. But if you're really playing because you love the game, which you have to at the college level, I mean, you got to find a place that you really love because you love football, not because you love the dollar amount in front of you.
Right. Because you hit the nail on the head with a lot of points there that the Charleston, with people that don't know, it's like 20,000 people. That's because of the university. Without that, it wouldn't be that. But it's a small town feel, but you got the college right there. You got, it talking to Wilkerson and all that. Like, and I obviously I've been there. Townies come to the games and stuff like that. So you got like the support from the community because they like the programs. They like this. Yes, it's not University of Illinois right down the street that packs out the stadium or anything like that. But it's people there that come to watch because they want to. They don't feel like they have to. They want to. These kids that jump into the portal, they just want money. They want this. When I talk to college coaches, and then some FCS coaches felt like they become the new JUCO because they're developing these kids and they just hop up and leave, which they can't blame them. They're like, hey, somebody said you want $100,000. Yeah, I do. Go. Like, now the new JUCO rule is going to change everything. It's just constant. And we talked a little bit. Some situations make more sense than others. Like, hey, I'm gonna move closer to my family. Awesome. That's a good reason. Hey, my dad is sick. This $30,000 would help pay these bills. Yep, I get it. You have to go. Um, playing time. If you find a place that fits your needs, okay, I get it. Like this just didn't work out. I get it. It's when people are playing, starting, and then the next year they go, oh, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. That doesn't make sense to me. That they jump in, and then sometimes they don't find what they want, and sometimes they don't find this. And like you said, I'm curious to look at all the Division I programs and see how little people jump in the portal. That's why I respect Bielema so much, because they really don't have guys always jumping in the portal. They'll have like a couple, which you can't stop, but they keep a lot of kids. Talking to Coach Miller, he says that. He's like, yeah, a lot of kids stayed. The couple go, but a lot stay. And that's just kind of what he's built there at Illinois. And you look at other schools, they always have guys leaving left and right all the time. And that's pressure on these coaches. Hey, this year I got the nice starting quarterback, this nice O-line, this nice receiver. Next year, oh, wait a minute. Now I'm down 3 O-linemen. I'm down a receiver. Now I've got to jump in the portal. I'm friends with the O-line coach at Akron. His second year, he told me, he's like, that was the most stressful spring I've ever had, because they came into spring ball ready to go. 3 O-linemen jumped in the portal. So then immediately he was like, do I play these freshmen that may not be ready? Now they got to jump in the portal to try to plug in like what they were prepared. He was the most stressed he ever been. And I'm like, man, you guys are really earning your paychecks, because that's stress. Just complete stress.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't imagine that.
No, and that's why I'm sticking with high school until the NCAA fixes it.
Yeah.
Because I want you guys to make money. I told Wilkerson that. I was like, I wish there was a way for like you guys at Eastern to make money, like some type of money, more than just your scholarship, more than just getting this paid for. I know you guys can have your own T-shirts and stuff like that, but it's not on the same level as like Alabama and all that. And being at Eastern, I was there for the budget cuts when Babers was there. Like right before that happened, it was bad. Like I don't know if I ever told you, when I was there, I helped out spring ball with Babers. Jimmy G was there, was doing all that. When they left was when the state of Illinois did all their budget cuts. And Eastern had to fire like 200 employees. Most of those were groundskeepers. So when you walk through the quad, the grass came up to like your calf because there wasn't enough people to just keep mowing it. So the campus is old, but it's beautiful when it's taken care of. It's small, it's beautiful. My God, it was ugly. Like it was so ugly to walk through because the grass wasn't mowed, nothing was cut, the bushes were terrible. They barely could keep up with the sports events because they fired everybody. And it was a bad time for Eastern, and they were really begging for money. And I love Dino Babers, but they spent a lot of money. They bought a bunch of new stuff, and it just took a lot of money. And there was a talk and point of like cutting sports at Eastern at one time. Like it was bad. And you were in high school, I think, when this was going on. And they weren't going to cut the football program, but they were thinking about cutting a woman's sport. But then if you cut a woman's sport, a male sport has to be cut. So they were going to get rid of some things. And so it sucks for Eastern because Wilkerson can't say, hey, I'll give you $10,000. Like,
right.
You'd have to go fundraise for it. Like, where does that money come from? Does it come from Tony Romo or Sean Payton? But they're not going to give millions of dollars to Eastern. And Eastern's the only OVC school with an indoor track. But that track, I don't know, have they ever even fixed it?
No, it leaks. It gets bad in there. I wish for, because when it's springtime and we're just doing spring ball where we're just working out and doing stuff early in the morning and getting things done. When you can't be on the football field and you don't have access to like an indoor football field. And when we get to go over there and there's cones over the thing because it's leaked in the roof, and there's water on the ground, and it's not necessarily the most stable track that you can run on. It really is. We just do with what we can. The cards we're dealt, we play them. And it's kind of, I know from a lot of the programs that I've talked to and hear, like the men's basketball, women's basketball, track. I've got friends all over, and they're like, yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily the most beautiful thing, but we do with what we can. I mean, the men's basketball, women's basketball arena just got redone. They're going to redo McAfee for the women's volleyball. Who, I mean,
Oh,
that
nice.
yeah, it's a big. I mean, there's definitely renovations being made. Our weight room's super nice. We just redid our team room. I mean, there's things that are happening that, it might not like seem that they're really trying, but I mean they are. I mean, and there's some
Mhm.
donors that are coming back that are, making big time changes. I mean, this summer getting to talk to Jimmy and Sean and, Coach Shanahan, getting to just listen to those guys. And, Jimmy's like, the same turf that you guys played on 2 years ago was the same turf that I played in the FCS playoffs. Like,
Yep.
it's, it stinks that that's how it is. We're not one of the big schools that, we can just be like, oh yeah, our field's under construction, we can go do stuff at the indoor, we can go to the, this, that, and the other. But yeah, I mean, the the indoor track, as cool as it is and as spacious as it is, and you can have a lot of stuff there. I've heard through a lot of people that it's hard to do stuff, especially in the spring, in there, because it just, the roof isn't really great, and they try and fix it as quickly as possible. But I mean, we still had to kind of go through that last year, but they're doing their best. I mean, that's all you can ask for.
No, I loved it because it's an old school feel. It's just the actual track was in such bad shape. And me living in Charleston for as long as I did, coaching at the high school, making connections. My God, I knew a lot of old track coaches then. They were like, "Oh my God, we got to fix this because state track's down here. What if they have to come inside?" And I never knew if they fixed it or not. And McAfee's so old. I'm glad they're going to fix that up. I saw the new floor in the stadium. It's awesome. I love it. It's a small town feel. So if you're not a small town feel, Eastern's not the place. But if you want to play college sports and you like the small town feel and you like the connections with coaches and the people, that's where you want to go. And like even classes aren't that big. I think my biggest class was like 60 people, 80 people at one point. I don't remember. It was a psychology class. Didn't learn jack shit, but I still went.
Yeah, I mean, my classes, once you get into, like, I mean, I came in from high school. I had some junior college credits where it came in pretty much a semester ahead of the freshman. I mean, I was almost a sophomore by the time I stepped on campus, school wise. And I mean, my classes, I might have anywhere between, I don't know, 20, 25. The biggest ones I have are like 30 kids, I'd say. I mean, even my labs are pretty small. I mean, if I don't usually, every teacher I've known by name, they know me by name. And you can really, like, I see them at different sporting events, and they say, "Hey, how are you? What have you been up to? How's classes?" Just kind of talking and being a person. And I mean, that's one of the things that I absolutely loved
Mhm.
about Eastern, was that, like, you actually make a connection. You're not in a lecture hall with 125 kids. I mean, you're in there with 20 other people that are going in the same, I mean, the same kids that I've had in my classes since I stepped on campus my freshman year. The ones that have stuck with the same degree that I have, I see them every single day, for fall, spring. I see them all the time in the same classes that I'm taking. And that's one of the things that I really have enjoyed about Eastern, is the small town, feel, but being in a bigger town where if you don't really want to be seen, you don't really have to be.
Mhm. Mhm. Charleston has changed since I left, though, so I haven't been there in years. Not in years. Uh, I know I've had you on for a long time. I just want to ask things about Charleston real quick to see if it's still there. The Panther Paul is no longer there, correct?
No,
Sticks. Is Stu still around?
Stu's closed my freshman year.
Oh, okay. Marty's is still there.
Marty's is still there.
On 4th Street, there's that big empty lot. I don't know if the sign's
Mhm.
still there for Jerry's.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
The sign's still there?
I don't know if the sign's there, but because I think, because well, now there's, at the end of 4th Street, Joey's is there on the end, and so
Yep.
but I don't think Jerry's is still there.
It was a building, one of the old buildings. I worked there. The top was a pizza place. The basement was the bar, and I was a bouncer there. That's where I met my wife. And then they tore it down a few years ago, and I was still living in Charleston. So this would have been like 2017 when they tore it down, maybe. And it was actually hard to watch them tear it down because you talked about ask some alumni, say the word Jerry's. I'm like, Jerry's. I remember Jerry's because it was a pizza place that was the closest thing to Chicago pizza that they could get when people came down. But if you look at the sign, if the sign's still there, you need to glance at it because it said, I don't know if it's still there, but it said Jerry's. But if you look at the indent in Jerry's, it says Caesar's because it was originally called Caesar's. Then Little Caesars came to town and Little Caesar sued them saying, no, wait a minute. So they had to change it. The guy's named Jerry, so named Jerry. What else?
No, I'll definitely peep that. I'll look and see if that's still there.
What else is still there? Is P-Box still there?
P-Box is still there.
I hate that place.
That's where a lot of the townies are. Usually that's not one of the ones that are frequently visited.
What else is still there? Is the place like Chipotle still there?
Mi Casa, Tu Casa.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love that place.
Oh, it's great.
Love it. That's it. I think that's all Charleston has to offer. Jimmy John's, original place of Jimmy John's.
Yeah, they got an Insomnia Cookies next to it now.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Oh, God. You ever had Chubby's Pizza? Come on now.
Oh, Chubby's. Yeah, we Chubby
It's
sticks,
still
and you
there?
get all the different sauces and everything else. Yeah, that's like a 3 a.m.
I
That's
didn't know that
a
was
great
still there.
that's a great place to go. Whenever you're just a little bit hungry, I guess.
You ever had their pizza or just their Chubby Sticks?
No, just their Chubby Sticks, and I don't know if I necessarily want to have their pizza because I know how greasy their Chubby Sticks are.
So one time we were sitting there and we were like, and this was not after midnight. This was like a 7 p.m. thing. We were like, we've never had their pizza. Let's just try it. So we called him and he was like, they're like Chubby's. And we're like, hey, can we, get like a large sausage pizza or something? The guy goes, wait, what? Because he was expecting Chubby Sticks. And we're like, no, can we just get like that? And he goes, how many do you want? We're like, can we get like 2 of them? He goes, sure. Delivered it. It actually is not that bad. It's not that greasy. It's really not that bad. Now this was like 2015 or 14, mind you, but still it's not that bad.
Well, I'll definitely have to try that out. My roommates will be excited to hear that because yeah, we've only ever gotten the Chubby Sticks and we know how those make us feel the next day.
Well, I was gonna say, you ever had Chubby Sticks the next day?
Yeah.
Oh God, it's not good.
Yeah, especially you'll come in next morning and the box is still there and you're like, oh well, maybe I'll try one. And it's like, oh, these are disgusting. Why did we eat these? That's so nasty.
What else? Polly Eyes is the best pizza.
Agreed.
I would say. I played poker with the owner a few times. And it's bad when you're playing poker and you're playing like $20-$40 and he comes in and he's like, what are you guys doing? We're like, playing poker. He goes, psh, this is like bitch money. So it was like $1,000 down. And I'm like, well, come on, man. Like, I can't.
Yeah. Was Ike's there whenever you were there?
Ike's was there. Is it still there?
That's more of like, if you go there during the daytime, it's more of like a bar and grill now, I'd say. But nighttime is still just a bar. I mean, they've got we get food from there every once in a while, and it's pretty good, actually.
One of the kids I coach at Charleston's parents bought it and so run it, I think. Dirty's, is it still there?
Dirty's is there. That's the best place to go in Charleston for food, in my opinion.
I was there when it opened.
They've got a good selection there, and really, I've always said that I don't think that I've ever had anything bad from there. So, I mean, it's a good place.
Yeah, I was there when it opened. My first year at Eastern, Marty's was not there. They opened it my second year. It used to be there. Then that wasn't the original location. It was somewhere else, and they reopened it. Yeah, that's about all Charleston has, really. I mean, it has fast food. It has the Brick House. Is it still there?
No, it closed down actually, and
What?
probably within the last year, I think. Yeah.
Well, because it's so expensive for no reason.
Yeah, and there's like 6 items on the whole menu, and it's like, well, okay.
That glass
That
bar, that was there.
mhm.
One of my buddies when I lived there is a construction guy. Helped put it in. That thing was $60,000 to put that whole
Jeez.
thing. Uh, he had to lift it, and they said if you drop this, you owe us like $50,000, $60,000. So they had to be very careful when they put that in, because that's where we would
Yeah,
have
that
our banquets for sports would be there.
okay. Yeah, that's where on my unofficial visit, and I think on my official visit, that's where I went for dinner both times.
Is Lefty still there? Tell me Lefty's is there.
I've never even heard of that. No.
Oh my God! It's the Uptown by the courthouse. It's called Lefty's.
Oh, it might be up there. I don't necessarily go uptown a whole lot.
Oh, you got to. It's way better. I mean, I'm old now, so that's where I would go when I got older. It's got a volleyball pit in the back. It's got bags in the back. It's right by the river. Um, I can't remember what year it was. We had this really bad storm and it flooded the river, and it flooded Lefties, and it flooded a couple bars. So all the bars closed except Lefties. There was videos of people in their rain boots and their rain gear and stuff. The water was up to their knees or so. They're walking around. They're still open. They're just like cash only because we can't run electricity. So they were open, and it didn't matter. It's if you want a Westville, Vermilion County feel, Lefties is the place. That's the
Yeah, I'll
place.
definitely have to check that out because that sounds. I mean, that sounds just as hillbilly as it is in Midwest Illinois.
Oh, that's what I'm telling. I didn't know it was there till like my third or fourth year there, because like you said, we never touched past Stews, never went north. Finally, we did, and we're like, oh, this is where that's where all the townies go during school. Like right now during Christmas break, the townies will start venturing into all the other places. Then when school starts back up, they all go back there. And then in the summer, if you stay there in the summer, go up there. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. Hopefully, if it's not there, then I'll let you know. But I mean, that actually sounds pretty interesting, and that story's hilarious.
Oh, it was a video on Facebook because we were like, what the hell? And it showed that they were still open. Oh, yeah, it's still open. I Googled it. Lefty's Holler is what it's called. It's still open.
All right. Well, I'll definitely now that I'm of age, I'll definitely have to take a trip there.
Yeah, it's on 7th Street, way down up north on 7th Street.
Okay, I got you.
That's the funny thing. I could go to Charleston right now and still remember everything and drive everywhere. They got
No,
pool tables. There's darts. I think at one point they had a Wii set up for people to go play. It was just the weirdest place, but it was awesome.
that is hilarious. That sounds so awesome.
And you play volleyball in the back. They got bags set up. Something else was set up back there. It's right next to the police station. Like it's here in the police station, I
Okay.
think, or the jail, whatever is right there.
I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, like when you drive by it, you don't really pay attention to it. And like right next to it is just a gravel parking lot. No spots, it's just gravel. So if you want to feel at home, that's where you go, is like up there.
I got you.
I'm trying to help you out here to go through it.
Yeah, I'd like to venture up there.
And then Stu's wasn't even open my first year there either. That was another second year thing either. It used to be called something else, but like the balcony up above.
Hmm.
Years ago, somebody fell off of it and died and sued the place. They had to close it down. And then somebody came back and bought it and made it Stu's again.
Yeah, I've been to Stu's probably 2 or 3 times, I think, and it was probably like one of the crazier things because it's like, man, I'd never seen this many people. Like, where did everybody come from?
Right.
And you're just like, there's people on the ground dancing, and there's people up on that balcony dancing, and it's like, man, what in the world? And then you go in another room, and it's like, oh my god, they've got bags set up, and I'm like, what in the world is this place?
Same thing with P Box. It's a small place, but you go in and you're like, where'd all these people come from?
Yeah, and if you go outside, they had like the little outside seating area, and there's more people back there, and you're like, "What in the world? I didn't know that this many people are even in Charleston at this time."
Well, when it opened up, it became the sketchy place, and what started happening was guys were looking at IDs and they were like, "Nope, this isn't you, and it may actually be you, and you're of age." They were taking IDs and selling them to people, is what the bouncers were doing.
That's crazy.
Because my buddy, that's born and raised in Charleston, his dad is the judge in town, was telling us that he was like, "Hey, tell me if this happens because we want to catch them." And we're like, "Cool." We found out they were doing it, told the judge. Police came in, shut it down. So we didn't shut the place down, but got those people in trouble. And that's because of
Yeah,
us. That was because of us because we told him, we're like, "Yep, this is true." And he goes, "All right." And
I mean, yeah, I mean, like, come on, that's everybody's in college. Like, just chill, dude. You don't need. I mean, making 50, $60, you ain't gonna do that. I mean, you're just messing everybody else's life up.
oh yeah, it was the mess. The Paw was the place to go. It used to be called Sticks. Then the guy bought it. I know the guy that bought it, changed it to the Paw, and then he sold it. And now I know it's not that anymore. That was the place to hang out.
Hmm.
And Marty's was
Yeah,
the frat place.
yeah. Now Marty's is like, because a bunch of athletes bounce there during summer, and
Yep.
if you're in season, then one of the other teams bounces it basically. And now I'd say it's 99% athletes that are in there. I mean, if there's something to do. And I mean, Ike's is like that's still a lot of the townies go there, and a lot of the frats go there now. And
Mm,
I mean, it gets crowded in there really fast. And Marty's is more of like the low key, you can go back there and play pool, and you
okay,
don't necessarily. Yeah, I mean,
it was the
Ike's
opposite. I was there.
yeah, Ike still has their pool table, but I mean that it gets so packed in there because it's so like narrow
Yep. Yep.
that you can't play pool without bumping into people and hitting people, and then it's like, oh, here we go again. And it's like, I'm just trying to play pool, man. Just please, like, watch out.
Well, that's why we discovered the older we got. That's how we discovered the Uptown bars. There's one. I don't know if it's still
Mhm.
there. It's called the Uptowner. You walk in. It's kind of narrow. Then there's another room. It's got darts, pool tables, and it's called the Uptowner because it's literally uptown, and that's where the townies hang out. And as you get older, that's where we would go hang out. Especially when I was done with college and just coaching and working, went up there. You just hang out. You stopped really going to those places. When I was there, Marty's was the frat place. So you went in there and it was packed. There was no pool table. There was none of that. That's Party Central because they owned those apartments right next to it. I don't know if they still do. They owned them.
Yeah,
So
they do.
that was Party Central. So I hated going there. If I went there, it was a bad time. But then all the old Eastern coaches, that's where they would take you out after the spring game. And so we'd all go there. And then the frats would start coming in. And you're like, okay, now we got to leave. And frats worked there. So you're like, well, I got to go. Frats would
Yeah,
DJ in that little booth in there. And
that now they have like a person that will come and like DJ like Friday and Saturday night,
oh,
and
nice. It used to be the frats.
it's actually pretty cool. I mean, and if people are playing like bad music or like everybody's like, turn this off, like they actually listen now, which I've heard from a lot of the older guys that were here. Well, it'd be 4 or 5 years ago now. That they're like, yeah, they didn't used to do that. It used to just be like, I'm gonna play my music and I don't care what you have to say. And it's like, well, I mean, you gotta understand the vibe of what you're trying to get after. And
Well, it's
I mean,
because they let
sometimes people don't understand.
it was frat guys that wanted to be DJs, so they'd come in and do it themselves. So whatever frat worked there, it changed every year. They would just DJ in there. So that's why my country boy self hated all that. I was like, this place is no. And that's what was cool
Yeah,
about the Panther Paw. You had one side that was the dance floor and everything else, and you walk through this little room, and it'd be a small area to hang out in. Then the back side of the dance floor would be pool table set up. Then then you could go out a door and have this outdoor patio to sit in. It was huge. So that's why you could have small field, just sit there, hang out. The big dance floor that was a mess. Then you had this other spot with pool tables. Then you had the outdoor patio where you could just sit out there and chill. That's why it was the place. But then when people found out it was the place, then it became really packed.
Yeah.
And then when P-Box had their scandal, Stu's became, because when my first 2 years there was 12,000 kids on campus, 10, 12,000. It was huge.
Wow.
Then my third year it went down. Then my fourth year it went down. Then I was a super senior. It really went down to what it was. But yeah, our first year there was 10 to 12,000 people or so. It was crazy.
That's insane.
That's when Carmen was open, like the freshman dorm. Like it was,
Yeah.
every dorm was filled.
That makes sense because, I mean, there's dorms now that are super vacant.
Oh yeah, every room was taken. Like there was no. That's when it was booming. This was 2009. It was booming, and then I would say 2012 is when it went down.
Yeah.
All right, Bryce, taking a lot of your time. You dropped some great knowledge. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you for having me. And whenever you want to do it again, you just let me know.
Yes, sir.
All righty.